It's a story about a tree cutter and some actors, kind of an intertwined story. I can only do short files, so bear with me. I can only save short files, so I have to keep stopping. So back in the winter, I hired Billy Ray from Nanaimo. Booking Billy Ray, you may know him as. He's quite a popular fella on YouTube. He has a YouTube channel there where he does tree work, and he's kind of like the. Do you remember the crocodile hunter, Steve Irwin, Australian fella who was on TV a lot before he was tragically killed? Well, Billy Ray's a bit like the crocodile hunter. He's kind of a larger than life animated character, and anyway, I there was a job in between where he lives and I live, and I needed some help, so I asked Billy to come and help. I was a little bit I was curious to see, was he the same character that he portrays in his videos, or was he role-playing somewhat? But anyway, you'll be pleased to hear that he was exactly the same. You know, he was full of life and enthusiasm, and he was exemplary, really. Very old-fashioned work ethic. You know, when you see that in the old black and white films of workers, and the film is speeded up and they're walking really fast. Well, that was like Billy Ray, you know. He was busy the whole time, unstoppable, really. It was almost like, I wouldn't say he was trying to impress me, but he was trying to prove his worth almost, you know. But I don't think it was specifically to me as an individual. I get the impression he's just like that on every job. Like every job is his first day almost, you know. He retains, even at 50 years old, he retains that enthusiasm. Anyway, later that evening, my wife and I watched a television program, The Graham Norton Show. Graham Norton is like an Irish. He was a comic, sort of comedy actor, and then more recently, for several years now, he sort of manoeuvred his way into having his own talk show through the BBC. BBC is the British Broadcasting Corporation. They've been around for as long as television has been around in the UK. In Canada, where we are, we managed to find this on some obscure channel, the Graham Norton Show. So we sat and watched it. So yeah, the BBC is, while it's claims to be independent, it's government funded, as well as selling their programs that they make around the world, their documentaries, etc., their films. And it's also funded by the people who live in the UK, who are required by law to pay a licensing fee, a television license, so they can watch the BBC. I mean, there's the catch is that even if you don't subscribe to the BBC, if you have a television license, let's say you watch Sky exclusively, you still have to pay this license to the BBC, which is weird, but it's not a request, it's compulsory. And if you don't pay, then it can lead to fines and imprisonment, basically. So yeah, the BBC claim to be independent, but they are often branded by many as a government propaganda machine. more recently too, their reputation took a battering when it came to light that they'd been not only employing and harbouring but protecting paedophiles, celebrity paedophiles and sexual predators who were active within the BBC for many, many years. The faces of TV, children's television programmes even. So not to kind of paint everybody or stain everybody that ever worked at the BBC, but apparently a lot of people knew about it and covered it up. And if not for the courage of some of the victims many years later, who actually stood up and spoke up about what had happened to them, then perhaps we'd have never known, because I don't see the BBC, I can't imagine that they ever would have volunteered any of this information. Anyway, fast forward to now. Graham Norton, as I mentioned, Irish fella, middle-aged, funny, kind of sharp-witted person that he is. Can sort of see the appeal with him to many. He has kind of a, how would you call it, sort of a contagious kind of aura about him that, you know, makes people feel good. Some people. Through my eyes, though, you know, when I look at Norton, because we all see the world differently, don't we? When I look at Graham Norton, I see a gremlin. Like, do you remember the Gremlins, the film, where they had them little furry creatures and then they turned into little angry things? I can't remember the exact plot, but it was many years ago. And when I see Norton, I don't see a human. I see a gremlin. You know, I don't know what it is. I just look at him, especially since he's getting older now, and I see him laughing, and I just see a fucking gremlin, not a person. Anyway, the show gets underway, and here there's 4 guests, 2 English girls with posh student accents, probably not more than 30 years old, and 2 American guys. They are Hollywood types, although I wasn't really familiar with either of them. And what unfolded over the, and you got the gremlin is sat on the end, you know, firing out the questions or what have you. He normally only has people on the show who have something to promote. Perhaps it's related to the BBC, or it's always interconnected somehow, you know. So these 4 weren't working together, but they're all familiar with each other, and they all rub shoulders and move in similar circles. So anyway, what unfolds over the next 30 minutes, it turned into, or straight away, it was one of the most distasteful shows of arrogance, I think, collective arrogance, and sort of disconnected ignorance towards everyday people that I've ever seen. Or maybe I have seen it, but living in Canada, there's no such thing as a celebrity so much out here, so I've become very much detached from that life and that influence, which is great for kids, I should say. But yeah, I sat and I watched this shameful self-promotion, you know, of these 4 individuals telling their stories with such immense confidence that these were stories that should impact everybody lucky enough to hear them. You know, it it was, and the stories of little significance when when you actually break it down into what it is. It was some fucking bullshit about what other actors they'd rubbed shoulders with. Maybe they'd sat near one who winked at them at some awards ceremony or something like that. It was a better, more famous actor than them, and that was big fucking news, and then you've got the audience who is being swept along with the whole thing, hanging on every word of these people. I don't know if the audience is paid or they pay to go there, or who they are, who makes up the audience. But it was, the whole atmosphere was so fucking fake, it seemed. And then you got the gremlin on the end who is laughing louder and harder than anybody else, at everybody's joke. His eyeballs are bulging out. He's laughing so hard, trying to show that he's laughing, because he's a lot to keep up with, because these little inside jokes are going back and forth, and Norton has to keep up with it all, So, it was just an awful spectacle to witness. It really was. It was. I looked at the two girls especially, and I think, how do you become so conceited and so self-absorbed so early in your life, and be so ignorant towards the struggles of other less fortunate people, while you sit there celebrating yourself, and they don't even sit there like they can't even sit up forward. They're kind of lounged back, just absorbing the whole thing. Like it was fucking awful, man. It was awful to see, and it's like they're rolling in money, the four of them. They don't have to work, what they call work, and it's like, we deserve this. Do you know what I mean? That's the impression you got. It's like they had this aura about them that said, we deserve this. We deserve to be where we are. This is fair. I remember the actor Anthony Hopkins once, in a moment of profound honesty, once said, I saw him, he was being interviewed on TV, and he said, the interviewer, I can't remember, it wasn't Norton, but it was somebody else who was reaping praise on him. And he said, listen, let's just get this straight. He said, I get paid an awful lot of money to pretend to be something or somebody that I'm not. Do you know what I mean? It's fantasy, really. And the interviewer was stunned by this, and he didn't quite know how to react. It wasn't part of his script how this interview was going to unfold. But you have these four pretenders sat on the couch, career pretenders, just reveling in self-praise. Anyway, I'm watching these four twats, 6 if you count Norton twice, and I think back to Billy Ray, earlier in the day, wrestling Big Wood, his son Hogan, I should say. He brought his son Hogan along with him for free. It didn't cost me any more money. He brought him along, and I think of Bill fucking sawdust all over his face and in his eyes, and wrestling about with this Big Wood, and then I think about his channel, and his selling his axes and his live streams and his memorabilia that he's selling, and he does it with such pride, such transparency and dignity. You know, it's dignified, and it's down to earth, and you know, it's such a contrast to watching the Norton show. You know, what a contrast between people, fucking black and white in character. But Bill is not alone either, and this is the point. You know, on YouTube there is just an infinite amount of information, or you know, disciplines that is there at the click of your finger. That's been put together by just everyday people. You know, there's musicians and craftspeople and artists, farmers, construction workers. You know, there's alternative news outlets, sports analysts, you know, fitness instructors. It's endless. It really is. And they're just normal people who've taken it upon themselves to give you a window into their life, into their hobby, into their passion, and it may relate to yours. You know, you can actually learn something. You don't learn fuck all watching the Graham Norton show, I can tell you that. You can't better yourself by watching a load of pretenders. So, you know, but in regards to YouTube, it's like it's almost like the working class Hollywood, you know, the Hollywood of the working class. Unlike the Hollywood on the Gremlin show there, you know, people who think they should have a red carpet rolled out in front of them on the street so they can walk on it. You know, the same types who think they have the right and wisdom to tell you who to vote for. You know, they think, sat in their mansions, they know what's better for you. You know, while you work basically till you die to pay your mortgage off. So I'd ask anybody who's managed to sit through this to just consider, you know, are you putting money in their pocket? You know, are you funding their lavish lifestyle and status, these pretenders? Now, I know everybody has their favourite films and their favourite actors, but, you know, perhaps be a little bit more selective what you actually pay to see. Because it's a fucking different world to yours and mine, like what they're living compared to us. So, you know, I would, in regards to YouTube though, and you know, the worrying thing is that it's not going to last. It affords us so much freedom at the moment. There's so much freedom of expression, which is not a good thing for the, you know, the nature of money hungry, power hungry, control hungry society and governments that kind of watch over us. But for now, it's very difficult for them to regulate. So, you know, make the most of it. And that includes encouraging people. It might be just some young kid singing or playing an instrument or drawing or whatever. You know, a few kind words here and there can go a long way to, you know, inspiring people to do whatever it is, you know, to chase down their dreams. On a darker note, sadly, I should also mention these internet trolls, these individuals that go around, they go on YouTube just to try and undermine other people, leaving nasty comments and what have you. Try and undermine the achievements of others or their aspirations or whatever it is, a hobby or passion that they're trying to showcase, and people as like these, they're just desperate to jump on something negative, you know. But if that's you, you know, look in the mirror and ask yourself, at what point did I become such a cunt? A real cunt? Ask yourself that. You know, when did it happen and why? Because I don't believe that you kind are born that way. You know, I think something must have happened to you. You know, perhaps it's a feeling of fucking inadequacy. You know, something as simple as that. But, and we can all, you know, go down a twisted road in our mind now and then. But you have to recognize that, draw a line, and say, right, I've got to get the fuck out of here. You know, there's nothing that can't be undone. You know, there is a way back. There's no fucking justification to behave like that. You know, it can't make you feel good, surely. Anyway, go and check out Billy Ray's channel. Bucking Billy Ray. What a nice fella. He left a huge impression on me. There's lots of other people in my line of work that I would like to mention too, but if I mention one, then I'd have to mention all of them. The reason why I mentioned Billy Ray, used him as an example, is because I actually got to work with him, you know, and hopefully we will again soon. If you've sat through this, thanks for watching, and I'll get back to tree cutting soon enough. Cheers.